What up, YouTube? What the hell's going on here? Alright. So today, we are going to have a frank discussion, all of you and me. We're going to have a conversation about the future. Let's talk about electric motorcycles today. But first, we get gas. Let's ride around, maybe head over to, I don't know, we'll see where we go and end up. Alright, so, I don't know how many of you all know this, but my daytime job is actually in the electric vehicle industry. And I believe, well, not I believe, in fact I know, electric vehicles are absolutely the future and blah 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 blah, green technology, blah blah blah. But obviously, motorcycle technology closely follows vehicle technology. ABS, things like that. So obviously the next evolution in motorcycling is electric. And so let's take a look at some of the let's take a look at some of the best electric motorcycles out there right now. Now before we get into this list, let me do away with any rumors or whatever people have told you. Tesla is not coming out with and is not making an electric motorcycle. Elon Musk said it himself that Tesla will never produce an electric road bike. So that's that. So no Tesla on this list. Also, you'll be surprised, no Yamaha, Honda, no Suzuki, no Kawasaki, no Ducati. See, obviously motorcycle technology, especially in the Supersport area, goes along with racing, MotoGP. Now there is a Moto E out there. It's part of the same, I don't know, brand or company or whatever the hell it is. Same league. And when you look at the Moto E team, racing teams, none of the big ones are there. You know, Yamaha's not there, Ducati, Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, nobody. No KTM. No, you're not going to see any popular brands on this list with the exception of our first electric motorcycle, and it is the obviously low-hanging fruit, the Harley Davidson Livewire. The Harley Davidson Livewire retails at $29,000 something, and it is the first electric motorcycle it is the first electric non-dirt bike, because KTM does have some electric dirt bikes, and Zero has some electric dirt bikes. So it's the first electric motorcycle out of the major motorcycle manufacturers that's actually on the roads today. Now, a few of these bikes that I'm going to go over are not on the roads today. They are able or eligible for pre-order. So if you are looking to get into that game, I don't know if I'll ever get an electric motorcycle, at least not in the near future. Another player who's looking to come into the electric motorcycle game is Indian Motorcycles. They actually recently trademarked the name for their first electric bike. It's the eFTR. I'm assuming it'll look something like the FTR, but they literally just trademarked this like a few weeks ago. And as far as I know, none of the major, especially sport bike manufacturers, Ducati, Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, those guys, none of them have announced plans or are even working on electric motorcycles. I'm assuming they're working on them. They all have huge research and development teams, but we haven't seen anything on the racing side, and there's no press releases, there's nothing. Crickets. So it seems like the North Americans are taking the lead, as you'll see from this list. Alright, sorry, back to the Harley Davidson Livewire. Yeah, this thing retails for like close to $30,000. For the bike that it is, I get that it's a new technology, but to me it's not worth the money. I wouldn't pay $30,000 for it. Now, a reason electric motorcycles right now are priced the way they are, the same reason why electric cars are priced the way they are, because battery technology is still catching up. God, that water looks gorgeous. In the coming years, as battery technology catches up, that price is going to come down dramatically. In fact, I believe probably within the next 5 to 10 years, electric cars and electric bikes will be way cheaper than internal combustion engine vehicles. You know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to need to park and just talk about this, because I have a little list. There's a lot of facts and figures and crap. this, so let's yeah, Purple Bridge it is. Ah, there's construction crap. This isn't gonna work. I have a better idea.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Alright, so back to the Livewire. This thing, it looks kind of cool. It looks a little different, honestly. It looks kind of like a naked bike, and I don't know. It looks just weird to me, but it looks kind of cool. Weird, but cool. So this thing has about 150 miles of range on a full charge, which for around the city, for commuting, is not bad. What in the world is this scooter doing? It's not bad, but you know, it's not going to get you from here to Orlando. Then it's got about, I think it's 105 horsepower, and they claim 85 foot-pounds of torque. You know, with electric bikes and the torque numbers, I take them all with a huge grain of salt, because you're gonna see some that say 85, like the Livewire, and then you're gonna see some that say 700. That's because they measure them differently. They measure engine torque versus wheel torque. I don't know, it's a whole complicated thing. So the torque numbers are weird, but yeah, this thing, so the battery on this thing is a 15.5 kilowatt hour battery. What that means, essentially what matters about that number is how fast the bike will charge. The higher the number, the faster it'll charge. Now anything above 19.2 does not matter, because that's the highest output a level 2 charger can do. A level 2 charger is the most common type of charger, other than just plugging it into your house outlet, which is a slow freaking charge. So remember, anything above 19.2 doesn't matter, because there are no chargers that can put out more than that. And if it does a 19.2 and the battery can handle 19.2, then that's about the fastest level 2 charge you're gonna get. There are superchargers out there. Tesla has a lot of them. They call them DC fast chargers, but those aren't recommended. They damage your battery, although they can get you a quick charge in a pinch. So yeah, that's a Harley Davidson Livewire. You know, it's the thing about it. The thing about these bikes is they have instant torque, and none of them have a clutch. None of them have shifting. None of them have a sound. They are silent. The little humming you hear with the Livewire, and probably with most electric bikes, is actually the water pump. But if it wasn't for that water pump, that would be completely silent. All you would hear is the rubber and the road interacting, which is kind of cool. But you know, that's the thing. People like the noise their bike makes. I don't know if that's gonna affect the market or what. So yeah, that's the HD Livewire. Let's park here for a minute, talk a little bit more. So yeah, that's the Livewire. And another bike that's not out yet is the Verge motorcycle. This thing is crazy looking. This thing doesn't have a regular motor. This thing has a, what they're calling a hubless motor. It is eligible for pre-order with this hubless motor. It looks like this. It's pretty freaking cool looking. Now the actual motor is in the tire, or in the, whatever this thing is called, the rim. It doesn't have a chain, it doesn't have a belt or a shaft drive or anything like it. Now this thing claims a ridiculous 700 foot-pounds of torque, so you know, I take that with a ginormous grain of salt. But it does have 107 horsepower, which, you know, is pretty good. And it's going to retail, and it's going to retail for about $25,000. So, you know, that's not a bad price point. But also for $25,000, you know, you can get you a bike that's closer to coming out, looks more conventional, actually looks pretty freaking badass. Let's move along to talk about this one, because to me this one is the, so far to me this one is the best iteration of an electric motorcycle from what I've seen, and that is the Damon Hypersport. It's a Canadian motorcycle. It's a Canadian company. This bike, if you look at all the, it's eligible for pre-order. You can put a deposit on one of these for just $100, which is pretty ridiculous. But they do retail at $25,000. And you know, If this was not an electric bike and it had all these specs, I would expect it to retail for about $25,000. This thing has a top speed of 200 miles an hour. It has a pretty awesome feature that I haven't seen on any motorcycle, and that is that as you can obviously set it and whatever, but as you speed up and slow down, the handlebars and the pegs move up and down to adjust your position, making it way more comfortable to ride this thing. You're not constantly hunched over, or you're not always upright getting, you know, beat the hell up by the wind. But it claims 200 horsepower, top speed of 200 miles an hour, and it looks pretty freaking sick. Like I said, it retails for $25,000. There is a premier version for $40,000 that you can put a deposit on for $1,000. But this thing is pretty close to production. This thing is almost out. It should be out later this year, if not early 2021. And you know, it's got some pretty awesome technology other than the handlebars and the pegs. It's got all kinds of sensors and cameras all the way around you to alert you of the traffic around you. It's pretty freaking awesome. I would call this the Tesla of motorcycles. This thing is going to be pretty freaking cool. If I was going to consider an electric motorcycle, this is the one I would consider. It also has 200 miles of range. You know, they took that 200 number and, you know, made it work for everything. Horsepower, top speed, range. That is a pretty good range for an electric motorcycle. The battery on the Damon is a 21.5 kilowatt hour battery. Like I said, if you're looking at another bike that's got 18 kilowatt hours, an 18 point whatever kilowatt hour battery, and you're looking at the Damon, don't let the battery size be the determining factor, because that's not going to determine range. That's just going to determine the speed of charge. And like I said, nothing above 19.2 is going to make a difference. So yeah, it'll charge at 19.2, the Damon, which is probably the fastest charge you can get on a motorcycle today, from a level 2 charger or a level 3. Yeah, it's a beautiful morning to be out riding. Alright, so that's the Damon. Next, let's look at two other companies trying to get into that Damon level, that super sport. They're trying to take the electric bike and make it a super sport bike. That's Lightning Motorcycles and Energica Motorcycles. They all look pretty cool, but they're not making the grade yet. You know, and it's happening with electric cars too, where the biggest innovations aren't necessarily coming from the established companies. Now, in the car game, yeah, everybody's getting in it. Ford, Chevy, Audi, Cadillac, Mercedes, everybody. Every major car company is going to have an electric car, but you also have these other car companies that are coming out of nowhere, working on purely electric vehicles. That's how Tesla came about. But Tesla was obviously the first. Tesla hasn't really looked back. But then you have companies like Rivian, Nikola, there's a couple others out there getting into the game very successfully. They get a lot of funding, and they're not an established car company. They're just a brand new company coming out with an electric car. So like, that's happening in the car game, that's also happening in the motorcycle game, except the big players in motorcycling haven't really gotten the game yet. Or at least it doesn't seem that way. Maybe they're keeping their project secret, I don't know. But I haven't been able to find anything for the Japanese brands, the Italian brands, only the American ones. Come figure, go figure. Then another player we have to talk about, which is probably the most established purely electric motorcycle company out there, is Zero Motorcycles. The Zero of course comes from the zero emissions, but they've probably been around the longest with electric motorcycles. They have, I think, 3 or 4 models of electric motorcycles actually on the market. These tend to be smaller motorcycles. You can rent them, but they tend to be smaller. They tend to be more street bikey, obviously. But recently they are working on the Zero SRS? Let's call it the Zero SR, which is more sport bikey looking, more super sport looking. It does have 161 miles of range, which is better than the Livewire, not as good as the Damon. Man, this bakery here always has a freaking line. And this was pre-quarantine. These people always had a line pre-quarantine. I gotta try them out one of these days. I'm a sucker for some sugar. Anyway, this Zero SR motorcycle has 110 horsepower, 140 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty good. Not as good as the Damon with the 200 horsepower. Claims a max speed of 124 miles an hour, which is not great, especially not if you're trying to break into the super sport, hyper sport, you know, segment. So far, Damon seems to be the only one really making strides, getting electric motorcycles into the super sport segment. Harley's working on the cruiser segment, I guess, though the Livewire isn't really a cruiser, more of a naked bike. You know, it's all relative which bike you prefer. You know, electric vehicle technology, it keeps getting better. Tesla made it cool. Tesla made it so that your electric vehicle wouldn't look like a freaking concept car like the Prius, or, you know, like a tiny little stupid car, like, forgive me, like the Nissan Leaf. Tesla made electric vehicles cool with battery, and you know, the big enabler for that was their battery technology. And until these battery technologies really catch up and really where the price of the production can rival that of internal combustion engines, that's when the big switch, let's call it, will happen, because the maintenance costs are insane. You know, a car costs on average to maintain about $1,500 a year. That's including gas, oil changes, you know, assuming a tire rotation here and there. Electric vehicles cost on average $400 to maintain. That's obviously including the electricity, because the maintenance on electric cars is non-existent. You don't need oil changes. You know, you need to take care of your tires, but other than that, these batteries have a life of, you know, 10 to 15 years. Having said that, once you do end up needing to replace a battery, at this point, at this juncture, it is going to be far more expensive than replacing an engine. But like I said, in the next 5 to 10 years, these battery technologies are going to catch up to the market, and it's going to be game over for the internal combustion engine. Not forever. You'll still have cheaper cars with smaller engines. Eventually, let's call it in 30 years, the internal combustion engine will probably go away, at least in individual transportation. I don't know about motorcycling, because, you know, we have to see how these technologies develop for motorcycles. And just so you have an idea, an electric car will probably take between, on a level 2 charger, will probably take between 4 to 8 hours to charge, the newer ones. It obviously has a much bigger battery than the electric motorcycle. An electric motorcycle, for example, the Damon, charging at a rate of 19.2 kilowatt hours, will probably take about 3 hours for a complete charge on a level 2. On a level 1, it will probably be around 4 or 5. On a DC fast charger, probably half an hour. Well, you know, that's another issue. That's the number one issue electric vehicle owners have, is range anxiety. There isn't the infrastructure out there to charge you up and charge you up quickly. That's kind of what I work on. You know, right now it's this is the big advantage that internal combustion engines have, that internal combustion engine vehicles have over the electric vehicle market. It's, you're low on gas, you go 5 minutes, gas up anywhere, and you're good to go, you're on the road. The electric vehicles don't work that way. Electric vehicles, first you got to find a charger if you're low on range, if you're low on miles. Then after you find the charger, you got to wait a long time to charge. That's not very conducive to motorcycling. But we'll see how it all ends up. So, you know, if you're looking to get into an electric motorcycle right now, your only real options are Zero, Harley Davidson, and maybe wait for the Damon. But there are new things coming up. There are, you know, like I said, Indian trademarked. Ooh, those are nice cars. What the hell? I gotta go check that place out. Indian trademarked the EFTR. We'll see what that thing ends up being like. We'll see what the big players end up coming out with, if anything. I'm assuming Ducati just has to come out with something, right? And you know, ultimately, right now, if you want an electric bike today, Zero, Harley Davidson, those are your choices. You know, give it probably next year, early next year, you'll have Damon out there. Soon after that, you'll probably have Energica and Lightning, probably Verge as well. And you know, we'll see how the technology keeps evolving. But Harley Davidson, I think Harley Davidson and Damon are going to be the big drivers of this. You know, a lot of the companies are coming out with like e-bikes, like bicycles, and you know, those things can only go so far. Those are proof of concept sort of projects that they come out with. KTM's got some, I think Zero's got a few, Harley has a few, but the motorcycling community isn't really going to take that. You know, we want real bike, and right now this is Harley and Zero. Damon coming up, bringing up the rear, but they're coming up quick at 200 miles an hour. Alright guys, that's gonna do it. Hopefully this was informative. You learned a little bit. If you have questions about this stuff, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'm not excellent at delivering this information, but I am pretty knowledgeable about it, so ride safe. That's it.